Dance all night, 'cause people they don't wanna be lonely, never wanna be lonely, or they don't wanna be lonely. You had a thing no one could ever be sure of, never ever had a full of, and never no cure from. You be on, don't give yourself.
Mic test. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Let's all start to settle in, settle down. Sorry, not settle in. Settle down. There are still empty chairs for people at the back. Could we invite you to find an empty chair so that the pathways are still clear unless we're overspilling. So in case of an emergency, the pathways are safe for everyone. Yeah. Let's all try not to hang out at the back. If there are still empty chairs, here up on stage and up on this side. Yan. If you're thirsty, you can actually bring your beers here. It's allowed. Okay. Let me just right click. Okay. Hi. We'll get started for real. Good evening, everyone. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. My name is Pia Bernal. I'm your fridge master for tonight and the strategic partnerships manager at Kickstart Ventures. Welcome to the Raid the Fridge. We've been doing this since August 2012, and I believe we're in the 150 plus area and that's an indication, that's your multiplier for how many beers we've served since August 2012. So we have an exciting topic for tonight. It's really a pleasure to have him here with us. And I hope that our hope as organizer of Raid the Fridge is you'll come here, you'll leave the event with ideas that you can bring back to your organizations and inspire you to do greater ideas. Ayaw na naman sa akin. Wait, here. Okay. Ayaw niya. Uh, oh, yeah, ayan, yan. Okay, just to recap or review our agenda for tonight, just to manage your expectations. Yan. So please, on this one, we encourage you to do. So the Q&A will only be as great as the questions you raise. So I hope you guys really engage our speaker for tonight. He's a wonderful speaker. He's done a lot of work in the creative space, in the physical spaces. So this is your chance to raise really great questions. For community announcements, yeah, sorry, I have a fight with our clicker. Palaging ayaw sa akin. Yeah, see, next slide. Ikaw na lang siguro, Monica. Ayan. So, before we introduce our speaker, I just wanted to plug our content, the Kickstart Insights. So what it is, you can download it by scanning the QR code. So just a brief summary, no? So this is about the energy crisis, the Kickstart point of view, and how we're showcasing our dependence on fossil fuels and how it has impacted us, and maybe there would be insights with your respective businesses on how to move forward with stronger, better, and fitter as a business. So the Middle East crisis and sustainability investing. So when you download this, you can also visit our website. We have other reports in there that might be useful for anyone here. Okay, so that brings our committee announcements. House rules before we get started. I have three house rules for everyone. Number one is to respect everyone's time here. If you must absolutely have a conversation with a fellow guest, please bring it outside or downstairs so that you don't disturb the other guests listening to the speaker, because it can get distracting when someone's like you hear a buzz behind you. So please bring it down, and then once you're done with that, just come back up here. So we want to make sure that everyone can hear what the speaker is talking about rather than a fellow audience talking near you. Second, if you left a an item, either email us through the Luma email address to let us know that you've left something behind, and then we'll make sure that it gets to you. But let us know. Don't look for it like a month later. So, I mean, for sure, it's still with us, but just making sure that you flag us early. Third is for safety of our guests. If at any point in during the raid of fridge you felt unsafe or something felt weird, and we can assist you at any point. Just approach us. My colleagues are wearing Kickstart shirts, so just tell them or flag them that this is what happened to you and you wanted to raise it to our attention so we can deal with it. So yun lang. Those are three important rules that we typically make at Raid the Fridge. So it's 6:32. At this point, I would like all of you, to welcome with a round of applause our speaker, Mr. Paulo Alcazaren. So these are your profiling of the
One.
where are you from?
Oh, I'm supposed to self-introduce.
No, it's like
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Evening. Yes, here. They told me to stand here. Nice crowd. How much time do I have? 3 hours, right? It's only 453 slides, so I hope you will enjoy. Yes, can everybody hear me? Yes. Thank you for coming, and thank you to Kickstarter Ventures for inviting me. I shouldn't have watched the Ayala game last night, so I'm uh, half asleep. But I'll wake up, don't worry. Can I have the clicker, please? Thank you very much. So I'm Paulo Alcazaren. I'm principal of PGA Creative Design. We're urban planners, landscape architects, and urban designers. And most of our work has been in the country in the last 20 years. But previous to that, I was head of our offices in Singapore and Malaysia. And we've done over 200 projects in 14 countries, mostly in the Southeast Asia region. And this is in planning, urban design, and landscape architecture. But my topic this evening is really about creative spaces. In the last 3 months, I've come back also as editor-in-chief of BluPrint Magazine, which covers design, planning, industrial design, interior design. I came back after 14 years being away from the magazine. They told me that print has made a comeback, and so they're getting the old people back, like myself. So that's one thing about analog. And recently, we just came out with an issue on creative spaces, one of the reasons I'm here. So we're talking about how great spaces inspire great ideas. Churchill said that we shape our buildings and then they shape us. He's not an architect, but he was talking about the parliament, which was bombed out by the Nazis, and the importance of rebuilding it because it shaped their democracy. And there we go. But let's start with context first. And this is our Philippine urban reality. This is us, somewhere here. Yes, there's some lag. So Metro Manila, over 600 square kilometers, about the size of Singapore, with 14 million people all crammed in. And it's obvious from this aerial picture that our land use planning is not very good. There's uncontrolled urban sprawl because we've just filled up every empty area. There's inadequate mass transport. That's why we have to suffer 3-hour commutes to get anywhere. And there's, of course, obviously, a lack of parks and open green space and an underappreciated and underutilized Pasig River. It's not much better in the next largest city, which is Cebu. That's Cebu City. Again, planning is almost not there. Inefficient transport system. They started a BRT line, but it's only 2 kilometers and fraught with problems. And politics gets in the way of the BRT expanding more than the 2 kilometers, which is really crazy. And of course, a lot, except for the central area where there are some plazas and small parks, there's nothing in terms of open space. So in Metro Manila, we actually have almost no public parks accessible except for Rizal Park, which is 58 hectares in size. And that's meant to support the 14 million compared to, say, Singapore, which has 320 parks scattered all over the city-state, or New York City, which has thousands of hectares of parks and open space, not just Central Park. So the World Health Organization target for open space per person in any progressive city is about 9 square meters of parks and open space that should be accessible within 15 minutes of walking or biking. But studies have pointed to the ratio in Metro Manila to be about 2, less than 2 square meters of open space, accessible open space per person. The La Mesa watershed, although it's thousands of hectares, is a watershed, and you can't have people going in there, or too many people, actually no people. the Eco Park is only 30 hectares of that 2,000 hectares or so. And so we can't ever reach the target ratio unless government takes over, unless we take over all of the golf courses and all of the government land that's now being prepped up for sale to developers. It wasn't always so in the American colonial era. Daniel Burnham, people think that we never had a master plan. We've actually had about a dozen over the last 100+ years of Metro Manila. Of course, none of the plans were ever followed through or ever built fully. This is the Burnham Plan of 1905, designed for 800 people with a mass transport and rail-based system for moving people around the city. We never built it. In 1941, because Manila had already become crowded, they had decided to move the capital inland 15 kilometers to what is now Quezon City. And they bought the land, made a grand master plan, but because of the war, never built it. But this plan was supposed to be for 1 million people. And the components of the plan are very interesting. So this is Manila, that's Rizal Park. This is the original area that Burnham had allocated for our national government center, patterned after Washington, D.C. So in Washington, D.C., you have the Potomac. Here we have Manila Bay. And we were supposed to have a complex of buildings, including all of the three branches of government facing the mall, leading to a monument. And in our case, it's the monument of Jose Rizal. So compared to the Washington, D.C., of course, our Jose Rizal monument, because Filipinos are short, so it's also short. So they moved it 15 kilometers inland because of the advice of their military, because 15 kilometers was the range of guns of battleships. If we were invaded, the cannon fire would reach 15 kilometers. Of course, when they were planning this, they did not foresee bombers. But they moved it 15 kilometers. That's why we have EDSA about 15 kilometers from the center here. And we were supposed to have a grand 400-hectare park. And at the end, in the elliptical, is supposed to be where we had our Congress and Senate. And on both sides, the new Malacanang and the justice system, surrounded by housing, public housing for civil servants and the rest of the population, and as well as institutions like the UP. So in fact, this was approved. Just bear with me, this is just context for the rest of the presentation, if it works. Can I just say next, please? Next, please. Oh, there you go. So just to show you, that's Cubao. This is UP. That's Quezon Boulevard. So this 400 hectares was supposed to be our central park, defined by North Avenue, South Avenue, East Avenue, and West Avenue. It never was built. Next, please. So they started building it. This is Quezon. This is EDSA. That's UP, that's the elliptical. But what happened next, please? War happened. So this is the Philippine Army in 1941. They ran out of budget for long pants. Next, please. Okay. No problem. Very good. That's a 500-pound bomb. And it still won't work. The one below? Okay. So that's a bomb coming down on Manila in 45 during the quote-unquote liberation of Manila. Okay, next please. So what happened, all of the infrastructure that was built during the American colonial period, like this, which is the Jones Bridge, the post office, yes, I'm sorry, I'm just getting my laser pointer. There we go. That's the Metropolitan Theater, the Mahan Gardens. In this picture, the City Hall was not yet built. That's the Jones Bridge. You know, it's before the war because we drive on the other side. There. Next, please. So what happened after the war was this. So we lost a lot of the infrastructure that was started, and very good infrastructure. We had the tram system, or the tranvia, which carried 7 million people a year. So we lost all of that. And of course, after the war, the car and truck lobby didn't want the trams to come back because they wanted to sell the vehicles. Next, please. So we lost all of that, although we had some reparations. The Americans reneged on their promise for several $billion in reparations and instead gave us a couple of 100,000 Jeeps. And that's why we have jeepneys. Next, please. So they revived the capital and they tried to rebuild Manila. This is the 1949 capital city plan prepared by Juan Arellano, Louis Croft, and Anselmo Alquinto, a Harvard planning graduate. And this was 1949 with revisions in 55 and 56. So this was the original 41 plan. That's the quadrangle, that's UP. They extended it further north because this was the original area was this considered too flat to be easily defended. So they pushed the capital up to the Batasan area. So the Batasan area is roughly where we were supposed to have our 3 branches of government fronted by a 100-meter wide Avenue of the Republic, which was supposed to connect to the North Expressway. And all of the Marikina Valley, because they already knew that the West Valley fault line was there, was supposed to have been bought by government and kept as open and unbuildable. The planners advised that, of course, nobody listens to planners. So it never happened. Next, please. So these are the elements. Plaza of the Republic, a new Capitol building, new Malacanang, Justice. We even had an airport, Quezon City International Airport. This is La Mesa. And the park was going to be built. I'm sorry, and built, and that's Highway 54 or EDSA. Unfortunately, again, never built. Next, please. And so what happened? Manila, and the story of Manila is the story of unbuilt master plans and the trajectory of urban to private real estate development companies, which it is until today. So they tried to build the modern government center in Batasan Hills, which was a skyscraper in the vein of Brasilia in South America. And when I was going to school at UP, we could still see the skyscraper skeleton unbuilt. Yes, I went to school half a century ago. And then this was the elliptical. And that's the Quezon Memorial, which took 25 years to build. So everything takes so long in government. Yes, I was a little boy. Next, please. So this was EDSA in rush hour in 1955 to show the pace of the progress in the Philippines. Next. Yes, that's how slow. Today, it's still as slow as, it's what, this is mine. Okay, very good. There you go. So today, our traffic moves as slow as those Carabaos. Okay. Oh, pointed there. Okay, very good. So this is where Makati comes in, where we are right now. Because of the failure of government to build the capital and to build a planned city, The owners left to private developers to do it and provide the alternatives. So Makati offered close to 1,650 hectares as an alternative for residential, industrial, and commercial development, leaving civic functions to Manila and Quezon City. Manila also passed an ordinance that forced all of the dirty factories to move, and they moved first to Makati and then to Mandaluyong and Pasig and Marikina because they were by the river. So that's the hacienda of the Ayalas, the 1,650. So it was the former Jesuit. So thank God for the Jesuits, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And the Jesuits were kicked out, and eventually, although they came back, the land was bought by Jose Rojas, a partner of Ayala Compañía, in 1851. Eventually, it passed on to Jacobo, Alfonso, and Mercedes Ayala de Rojas in 1911. The hacienda was mainly agricultural, but they also produced pottery and bricks, and they also grew zacate, which was the fuel of the horses that pulled the original franchise of the Ayalas of the tranvías that serviced Manila. So Makati was a hacienda town of 3,000 people by the picturesque, unpolluted Pasig River. This is taken from the main house of the Ayala Compañía over 100 years ago. There it is. That's the Peter and Paul Church. This is Poblacion. Okay. And that's the main commercial house of the Ayala Corporation at the time. And they were even connected to Manila via a rail line, which you could get on in Tutuban and make your way to Makati, and from there to Camp McKinley, Pasig, and all the way to Marikina, and in fact, all the way up to Antipolo, because Antipolo was the destination, a popular destination because of the yearly pilgrimage to Our Lady of Antipolo. Sadly, all of that is gone. But what it is now is Kalayaan. So the alignment of the rail, you can still trace the alignment of the original rail. That's why we have this easement. That's Poblacion on the left. So to maximize the use of the hacienda, in 1926, the first subdivisions were built. The subdivisions were here. Olympia and a few others were the original. It was not Dasma, Sanlo, Forbes. It was pre-war, and the original Ayala subdivisions were here. And I've run out of. Or over here. This is today the Circuit Makati. This is Paseo, Makati Avenue, and Ayala Avenue, which were the runways of the Nielsen Airport. Which opened in 1937. There we go. That's a railway. South Cemetery is actually land of Manila. It's not Makati. They still own it today. And that's Poblacion. From 1948 onwards, because the government had told Nielsen to shut down and they wanted to move all of the airport operations to Nichols Field, the Ayalas turned it into an alternative to the unbuilt Quezon City. These are the two guys in charge of that project, Fernando Sobel and Joseph Making. You can see the master plan behind Mr. Sobel over there. So they actually followed their own master plan. And that's why it succeeded. So if you take the advice of planners, then things will work. So this is one of the first zoning plans in 1970. This is in the 1950s, and you can see that this is Forbes. This is EDSA. You have Dasmariñas, Forbes, and all of the villages. So it was like the Quezon City plan in that there was a central avenue. There's no civic center, but you had commercial establishments on both sides of Ayala. In the Quezon City plan of 1949 and 1955 and 56, it was the same pattern. In the Avenue of the Republic, all of the commercial establishments from Escolta were supposed to transfer to Quezon City, but it never happened. And the villages were on both sides or around that central avenue. So Quezon City failed to build it. Makati built it, and that's why you have what were supposed to be villages of residential villages like Urdaneta and Salcedo and Legazpi were supposed to be houses and lots. But of course, they got too successful. The price of success, it was turned into buildings. But the interesting thing here is that this violet strip is your industrial zone. It's light manufacturing and warehousing. But this was where a lot of the companies that were originally based in Manila transferred to. So this is another iteration of the plan showing the area of Pasong Tamo, which is now Chino Roses, right? That's why you have the big cuts with which is now turning into all large condominium mixed-use developments. It's because they were factories and warehouses. See, this is Forbes Park in the 1950s. The price, this was actually the cheapest land in whole Metro Manila was in Forbes Park at the start. The most expensive land was actually in Mandaluyong, around the Lourdes Hospital. So the price of property there was more expensive than Forbes because this was the periphery of the city and nobody wanted to live there. So the Ayala executives and one Mr. Henry C. were the first to build their properties there. That's the church and supermarket. So this patterned after American suburban development, which is why we continued this pattern all throughout Metro Manila and beyond. Urban sprawl is because we're following the American pattern of large areas dedicated to houses and lots, which is not the most sustainable way we find out now to build. So Forbes Park, 48 to 50, Sanlo, Bel Air, San Miguel Village, and then the industrial developments in the 1960s you can see from this aerial. That's Bel Air, nothing yet. How I wish I could travel back in time and buy several lots. Or even this, the owners of these warehouses, they're now all the SMs and the Citylands. That's Buendia. So that's the edge of, this is the edge of the CBD. So the reason I showed that, if I can go back, is that all of this land, because industry has now moved to Laguna, Santa Rosa, and beyond, all of these are changing in use. And these are the interesting places where you find redevelopment and the spaces where creatives are now going to, or we can find opportunities for creative spaces and creative sites. In the 1950s, you saw the introduction of new styles of architecture, the modernism, the mid-century modern buildings. Of course, it was very literal. The aircon building looked like an aircon. And the first new type of residential development going up. So in magazines of the period, they featured, oh, how can we live 3 stories above the ground? So they had, there was an initial resistance to living in multi-story buildings, but we got over it. Of course, now we live 50 stories above the ground. There's the Monterey Apartments, unfortunately not there anymore, designed by Leandro Locsin. So jump to today, Makati is this. It's a dense central business district filled with skyscrapers and expensive condo towers, surrounded by traffic, isolated, isolated from we're isolated from the other CBDs. Metro Manila is a multi-CBD metropolis. And so this is what happens to us if we don't follow master plans. That's Rockwell, which is a redevelopment of the original power plant, and that's a Pasig River. So a lot of the development really is adaptive reuse of previously functioning districts, previous districts with other functions, and things change. So we have to really figure out how we want to build our city of the future by understanding first the history of why we're here and understanding also the culture we have now, which has changed, especially in the last 10 to 20 years because of technology. So people are living in smaller homes and condo units, 21 square meter studio, 28 is I think already one bedroom, no? 28 square meter used to be just our toilets before. They're now full units. And people live because it's cheaper to live in the city in small spaces and to save commute times and other expenses. And work patterns have changed, especially since COVID, in terms of work from home, the digital nomads, and this has led to the rise of co-working and co-sharing spaces. So the culture of how we live, where we live, how we work, where we work has changed. And the city has to adapt to this. But the first adapters, is that the right term? The low-hanging fruit are the places that can be quickly adapted to suit the creative industries of creative endeavors of people like yourselves. So these are the places that you don't have to wait 4 or 5 years to demolish a existing building or site, to design it and build the expensive complexes. And it's 6 years after the fact that you have the spaces ready. So all of this congested living also has led to what Ray Oldenburg calls third places. The first place is the home, the second is work. But you need the third places as anchors of community life because you can't be stuck in your small apartment. And it facilitates and fosters broader and more creative interaction. This is where we all get our inspirations by the random meetings that we have with people in places like this, in cafes and other third places that are sprouting all over the city. So cafe culture has thrived here because of this, and co-sharing spaces serve this function also, but we have very few public libraries, parks, or plazas. This is what we lack. It's just full of co-working spaces. Another typology of space and place is emerging, one that blends the third place function with a mix of other affordances that nurture Filipino creatives and the creative industry. Affordances are what you get from places like parks, plazas, libraries. These are the what used to be provided by civic space in older cities or more progressive cities, places for the public that give access to everyone. So these are emerging creative spaces at the fringes of planned districts. So all over Metro Manila and other metro cities in the Philippines, you have these emerging districts that are quickly, very nimbly turning into spaces for creatives. I will show you Cubao, Manila, Cebu, and Makati. Some of these are featured in our current issue of BluPrint Magazine. But it does not necessarily mean that we have to build new buildings or fancy complexes because of this, the circular economy of adaptive reuse of existing sites and buildings. Because the greenest building is the one that's already standing. When you build a building, it has what's called embedded energy. All the energy that went into producing the steel, the cement, the wood that goes into building is part of the equation in determining things like carbon footprints of buildings. So keeping and adaptively reusing old buildings saves energy, stops waste better than tearing it down to build a new one. Making steel and concrete takes a lot of energy. And studies have shown that a building keeps that locked carbon or embedded energy in place. It takes a new building from 20 to 80 years to save enough energy to make up for the carbon used to build it. So this is the way to go. And this can bring us into the future very quickly if we can only find the opportunities and get people to invest. Diba? Kickstart Ventures, investing to. Okay, to invest in projects like this, because this will get us there faster. This is what Singapore did. Of course, Singapore being top-down government, progressive at that, but still top-down, tried to do it when I was still there as head of our office in the 1990s. But they forced it, and they tried to build, oh, this is our new creative district, and they tried to build new things. But it didn't work. Everybody went to the fringes where the rents were low. So eventually, the government adjusted, like the Singapore government always does, and they created places like Block 71, adaptively reusing flatted factories. Singapore was heavy into heavy industry at the start with Jurong engineering and all that, but they eventually went to semiconductors. But eventually, they embraced the creative industries and the creative economy. And so they had all of these flatted warehouses. Factory or warehouse is here we have them all just in one story. But because of the lack of land in Singapore, they're stacked. So they're flatted. So tons of places like this have now turned into the creative spaces and functions that host all of the creative industries in Singapore, and they've expanded into Jakarta and also China. Here, of course, we're in one place like all these things I've described to you. This is adaptively reused, and I had a fascinating tour this afternoon of the place. This used to be one of the houses in those 1950s, mid-century modern. Adaptively reused, circular economy, everything's recycled, and you're all here, right? There we are. That's me. No, that's not. Of course, all of this started a few decades ago with places like Cubao X. While Araneta Center was being replanned by a fancy American Indian guy, there were places like this that they didn't own, but quickly turned into the place to go for those of you young like myself. So Cubao Expo used to be a showcase for Marikina leather shoes. When I was going to school, this is where we bought our shoes. But it's adaptively reused, and of course has nurtured a very exciting community that has events all the time, but reusing the existing physical frame without having to build. You don't really need to build fancy new buildings to create the vibe, or what's the term you use now, the riz that you need, right? So this is where I go to get the old vinyls I always wanted to have when I was young. Another place is, of course, the First United Building, FUB. Wonderful place on Escolta. Unfortunately, in Cubao, it's only that one place. They should turn COD into something the same. So there's a bigger, greater floor area. So it's possible. Here, FUB did that, but also in one building. And I'm just waiting for the other buildings to follow suit. Of course, a lot of you, I'm sure, have been there. That's the ground floor. That's my friend, architect Art Serrano, who has a studio upstairs. I used to have an office I shared with Carlos Cedran and Julian Abrija before COVID. And that's the top floor, which is now turned into a event venue, and they have concerts there. Co-sharing spaces, studios, wonderful light, wonderful building, very well made. And this is what can be done with our heritage structures. We don't need to tear them down. I think the atrium is being planned for demolition, but we should really keep the atrium. So street parties anchored by FUB. So in Cebu, and we were there a couple of months ago, we discovered that this is happening also in the Queen City of the South. This is Fuente Osmeña. That's the center of Cebu, but the CBDs are in Ayala and Lahug. But all of the old building stock are now being adaptively reused into these creative spaces. One of them is white brick in Mango Square, which was the pioneer shopping center. Rustan's was the anchor tenant. If you go there, and I discovered it actually the year before, 2 years ago, because it was disused. When I went upstairs, there were all of these studios, galleries, makers, Fab Lab, and all of the creatives organizing their own events and getting things happening in Cebu City. This is a photo studio. This is one of the guys heading White Brick. They have galleries and co-working spaces. About 3 blocks away, you have Atwa, which is in Cebuano there. So it's there. When you get there, there's something there, which is a creative space. A wonderful place that used to be one of those rinky-dink economy hotels, business hotels that had the minimum of amenities. So the owners turned it into, and that's how it looks. It still looks the same, very nondescript. Nothing fancy, don't have to get a star architect and pay him millions of dollars to design something. This is better than that. So Atua is 3 stories. The first 2 stories are the galleries and studios. They kept the top floor and leased it out to a boutique hotel operator. And because of the the risk that it has now, that boutique hotel is fully booked. You have to wait a year and a half to get a room. And inside, all of these wonderful places. All types of very, very diverse mix of galleries, studios, and everything. Of course, you have the ground floor cafes and restaurants. Featured in my sister publication, Rolling Stone, which is published by One Mega Group. And what happened is so successful, they turned the other buildings in the compound into additional retail and gallery space. Here we have atrium. Because the rents are low, because the future of this building is still unsure, you've got a lot of, a few places that have used this as their venue for things like Purveyor Plaza. Wonderful place for young people like myself. I just bought something there. And common room. So the makers and the crafters all go there. It's very quiet. So if you want to find quiet in Makati, it's right in the center. So this is the fringe, but in the center. So you have to be creative in finding all of these opportunities to put up spaces and places that give all of these affordances that everybody really needs. So Fab Labs, co-working workshop. Also in Legazpi, a set of villages. There are a good number of them, especially in the older buildings, because nobody wants to stay in the older buildings. All the corporations want to stay in fancy new buildings. So you have all of these smaller buildings, the ones that are 5 or 6 stories, up to 7 stories, that you can find good rental places. And this is where these guys are. You find them both in Legazpi and Salcedo villages. But the thing that makes it attractive is because Now, Legazpi and Salcedo villages are all pedestrian friendly, comfortable to walk in. You have cafes all over. That's the trick. You have to make a district, a city district, comfortable to be in, and that's because of the improvements that the Ayala and Masaya have done in the last 20 years. So in these past 2 decades, Makati's infrastructure for pedestrians have improved and created this comfortable environment. And we've been one of the consultants involved since 20 years ago, turning it into previously car-centric district into a pedestrian-friendly development. We started in 1998. I was only, never mind, how many years old? It took us a long time to retrofit Ayala Avenue, Makati Avenue, Paseo, changing all of the sidewalks, replanting the trees, fixing the fiber optics, and creating this network that now allows you to walk from one end to the other. In the old days, 30 years ago, it used to take you 30 to 40 minutes just to get from Legazpi to Salcedo Village. And when we did this, after the first, I think, 6 years, we knew it was working when we saw Fernando Sobel walk. Because previously, executives, even middle management, would not be seen. It was unseemly to walk. Only rank and file people walk. But we're changing our culture. So it's been a success, and we all are doing it now also in Ortigas and some parts of BGC. But BGC learned the lesson from Makati, and that's why it's required that you have the weather-covered arcades in each building's ground floors, so everything's connected. Of course, BGC still does not have a transport system, but hopefully that will be fixed. Anyway, we also found a lot of these situations where it takes 60 to 70 meters to get across, and seniors like myself will lose our lives just trying to cross. But it was designed for high-speed traffic, but nobody drives at high speed in these areas. But the curve radii were very big. So this is the corrective. We took this and turned it into that. So these are called bump outs in planning parlance. But we gave it a name. We called them urban patios. So we tried it out in 3 intersections because they were skeptical. The Masaya board was skeptical, but it worked. So now we've done it in over 1,000 intersections, and we're retrofitting. And a lot of the Philippine urban centers can retrofit like this. It's very simple. Our only problem with things like this in other cities, and we try to do it, is because it's cheap. And whenever we propose it, the DPWH, that's too cheap. It has to cost at least, 250 million. Now we know why, right? Now we know why. So it's a speed table. It favors the pedestrian rather than the car, right? So you have to make the pedestrian king, not the jeepney the king. And we won an award from DTI, a good placemaking award for this right before COVID, when we did the first few intersections. So the next one is, remember that industrial area strip that I showed you in violet? This is what it is, and there's a very interesting development called Caribbean Plaza, which is a warehousing complex and a commercial building. And they turned it into a mixed-use, mixed creative space building. It was very popular. They also have the warehouse building is turned into several art galleries and the alley. So this is where it's isolated, but it's large enough in gross floor area to have enough mass to bring people in. But you have to find that mass, that scale, to actually create a mini district, which you can have in this large complexes. So very successful. In fact, the owner told me she's taking the same formula, and they're getting one of the buildings on Buendia, the low buildings, and they're turning it into the second Caribbean. Well, I don't know if they name it Caribbean Plaza, but the same formula of taking what used to be just very boring offices of God knows what into a mix of creative spaces. And one of the things that she'll put there is a library. You know, books. So the other place which has enough mass also is Comuna. So it has to have mass, like the Death Star. You have to have, well, but in a more positive sense, to attract people to come. So Comuna is in San Antonio Village. It was a former taxi depot. So they turned it into this wonderful complex of creative spaces, a bit nondescript from the street, but it just won the placemaking award from the DTI. And the Red Award is one of the highest awards for creative, for placemaking. So inside, it's really, it's one, two, three, three levels, but it's a really split level with a nice courtyard. So wonderful restos and cafes, but the restos and cafes are actually distributed. They don't follow the formula of just cafes at the bottom. They have cafes upstairs, and the studios are distributed in those spaces. These are some of them. That's a bookstore. This is on the top level. So the formula is to make it work, you must have caffeine everywhere, left, right, and that will fuel creatives like JJ Acuna, very successful interior designer. So what else in Makati has potential? You have potential in places like Poblacion, with new plazas, pedestrian infrastructure, and the Pasig River Esplanade, which hopefully will be built, I don't know when. I was involved in the original one in Manila, but it can be done. And if it's done, it will create the atmosphere and environment for all of these creative spaces. So this is a Poblacion. You all know where Pobla is, right? If you can remember, after having drank so much, this is Poblacion. During the day, I know it may, you don't, yeah, okay. So this is what it looks during the day. When you're sober, it looks like this. But wonderful opportunities, not just for cafes and bars, because you can bring in studios, offices. If I were still starting my company, I'd move here because it's in the center of everything. Unfortunately, the subway that was supposed to be connecting this to everything else is not, may push through, we don't know, depending on how the political winds blow. But before COVID, we were asked by one of the entrepreneurs there to look at studies to improve the pedestrian environment of Poblacion, and we did it. So this is a typical Poblacion street, and we adapt the concept of WUNERF, or shared streets, and that's what you could get. It has been done. We're actually doing it in some towns, some cities in the Philippines. So shared streets means the residents still have access, but you add greenery, you add improve the pedestrian paving, and you adaptively reuse. The number of residents actually living in Poblacion, I was told, has now come down to from a high of 70% from before COVID. Most of the residents have now moved out, and most of the places are now commercial. The reverse, 70-30. So there's opportunity for all of these spaces very quickly without having to go through development controls by the city, because the building is already there. So adaptive reuse, or even if there were some building, then it could be done because it's low level up to mid-rise buildings. This can be done. It has been done. We were actually proposing to close down pedestrian streets in Legazpi and Salcedo villages as early as 15 years ago. It's only now that they're thinking of implementing this. this pedestrianization from that to that. And we found opportunities, this just recently, we found opportunities to turn useless space, that's Polaris, that's beside, I forget, Jupiter, and it's only used by tricycle drivers to sleep at midday. And you can turn it into a nice plaza, which will raise the value of all of the properties surrounding it and provide us all the additional needed space. Cristo Rey is existing. That's a church I showed you in the earlier picture. But the city has built so many small buildings. Every administration is just looking for things to build at exorbitant cost. But to open it up, very simple. Literally, just open it up and provide, make it accessible for everyone. It will raise the value of the place immensely. And by the river, you have this. Plaza 13 de Agosto. That's the old city hall of town hall of Makati, but this is a very problematic high-speed curve. So it can be fixed. That's how you can fix it, by forcing the cars to slow down and connecting that area with a small plaza leading to the Pasig River, which is over here. And speaking about water, I need to take a drink, because I've run out of juice. Is there a bathroom break for everyone? Are you all just holding it? Okay, very good. Okay, speaking about the Pasig River, unfortunately, it's being threatened today by some wise guy who wants to build an elevated skyway over it. That's what we have today. Wonderful, still wonderful views of the Pasig River, right? But this is what they're planning to build. That. Yes. Yes. Yes or no? No, right? Yeah, but he's very one-track minded and he's just waiting for the administration to change. It will reduce the values of all of the properties. It will bring in pollution, air and noise, all of the the rubber and whatever. It doesn't take a genius to figure out this is not good. But they say that it will solve traffic, right? Of course, everybody knows you can't solve traffic by widening roads or by building in, upstairs. That's tantamount to trying to solve gluttony by loosening your belt. Because of the principle of induced demand. The more space you give cars, the more cars there will be. And traffic is just a symptom of the problem of a lack of a comprehensive mass transit system. So we have to focus on that. Thankfully, we have a DPWH head that is leaning towards those progressive ideas. So more skyways and widening roads will not solve traffic. But we tried to solve traffic a couple years ago with color coding and carpooling, right? Oh, this is Arroceros. Oh, that's what they're going to build. So we tried to solve traffic by carpooling. And that's our reality. This is actually carpooling in the Philippines, which is actually two problems are flooding, which we now know the cause of. And anyway, so this is I end with my advocacy, which is really the creation of walkable places and spaces for everyone, because everyone really, we are all commuters at the start of end of the day, unless you're Ramon Ang, who is ferried by helicopter the minute he steps out of his bathtub. So other than BGC or Makati or high-end enclaves, do they exist at all? Sidewalks in the Philippines means you often have to walk sideways. I think Secretary Dizon saw this presentation of mine. I've been giving this presentation for 10 years because I've tried to solve this, but they won't budge. Fortunately, today, DPWH is budging We're starting with Naga, and DPWH is allowing us, well, of course, now he's done it in EDSA, but we started in Naga because Mayor Lenny asked him to come in and we showed him what we could do by expanding sidewalks. We have to remember that we all start and end all of our commutes by walking, yet we invest very little. Why? Now we know why, because it's cheaper for pedestrians. That's our day-to-day lives. But how can we walk when sidewalks are used for other things other than walking? Parking for tricycles. I hope for a day when we have more rights than SUVs. Sidewalks are for people, not the commerce of man, but you have this everywhere. That's McDonald's, and this is McDonald's. You cannot complain to the police about all of this because the police is also on the sidewalk. You cannot complain to the barangay captain because he's also in the sidewalk, right? We don't have civic space. We don't have creative space. We don't have civic space. Yet the government owns a lot of land. It prefers to sell it to the highest bidder than give it to people who actually, we own the land, right? There's public, it's called the public realm. Even the Avengers, you cannot complain to them because they're also on the sidewalk. That's the Avengers car wash in Manila. I can't even. There's no coordination between the people painting the crosswalk and the people building. This is in Cagayan de Oro. I did not stage that picture. So this, I call all of our cities Poland because it's full of poles. Poles everywhere, poles. Really no space for pedestrians. Jesus Christ. Because even Jesus Christ is in. I call this the block Nazarene because in Manila he's in every block. I mean, we're religious, but you know, they have churches, right? And this is our daily Calvary, Mount Kamuning. There. Fortunately, Secretary Vince and the president have made sure that it's now demolished and they found an alternative, which they should have done before they planned the thing. The DPWH thinks we are all Olympic mountain climbers. This is in front of Shangri-La, EDSA. They're engineers. I'm sorry, any engineers here? So I'm so frustrated with all of this. The problem really on all of this issue is politics. So I tell people there are 3 reasons why planning does not work. It's the 3 Ps: politics, politics, and politics. So tonight I'm announcing my run for Congress. And I have a party list. It's the Metropolitan Alliance for the Development and Fixing of All Cantos and Sidewalks. Motherfuckers. Motherfuckers, we have to reclaim all of the public realm for ourselves. If our town and city governments don't give us this, we have to go to the city hall or town hall and we have to shout, motherfuckers. If Malacanang won't give this to us, we have to go to Malacanang and shout, motherfuckers, right? So please remember, party list, motherfuckers. We're on Facebook and Instagram. That's our logo. I'm serious. I've been told I should run, but so I leave all of you with this one final question. Do we strive to find new ways of shaping our urban environment, build sustainably, embrace culture and creativity, bring back plazas, parks, sidewalks, and public open spaces, or do we continue to build our cities like this? Thank you very much.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Paulo. We'll let him hydrate. Anyone want to grab? Oh wait, let's just stay put. We'll shift to Q&A. Do you want to sit? You're okay standing. Okay, so having been reminded of the idiocy of our physical spaces, as we shift to Q&A, I'd like to, for Paolo's benefit, I just want to see a raise of hands. How many are you are entrepreneurs? Please show a raise of hands. Students. Corporate slaves, corporate workers.
Slaves.
Anyone from the government? Don't be shy. It's a badge of honor if you work in government.
Line agency? DTI. Okay. Any
Thanks for
architects or
coming.
engineers?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yes. So having seen the photos that you shared and giving us the full context of how history dictates really the present day and how the mistakes of the past, if we've ignored it, we are bound to repeat it. In front of this audience, what would be your call to action to them? Because as someone who loves to commute and walk, I've seen and felt those inconveniences. And I think Minette greatly told me once that Filipinos in general has a culture of tolerating broken things. And so we allow lapses in service and blah, blah. And we always hesitate to push back. And in a way that also permeates the startup industry when it comes to, say, customer servicing, product development. Not all, but you could still see some of it. As an architect who's had so many fingers in different conversation, presence, inputs in and views of how cities are doing their own developments, what would be your call to action to this audience so that it will be a better future for us here in Metro Manila and other cities?
Run for office. I'm serious. Start even at the barangay level. I mean, all of us know what the solutions are, but we allow graft and corruption to just enter the equation all the time, and we just turn a blind eye. So even the Kabatang Barangay, is that KB? So much corruption there. And they're taught from the start how to scheme money from public funds. We have to, if we just let it go, then it will continue on happening. Fortunately, we now have a fresh crop of leaders who are more progressive-minded and unflappable in terms of graft and corruption. I mean, we're now doing work for Mayor Vico in Pasig and Mayor Lenny in Naga. And if you have leaders like this, everyone follows. I mean, even in their plantillas, we still find people who are still controlled by corrupt politicians or the powers that be. But it has started to change. And so we should pursue it by example. Get involved even at your town or barangay level. There are a lot of interventions like these that we've shown that can be built or designed. We can stop the parex by just making our voices heard. Social media is very powerful tool. Journalism, yes, media in all its forms now can reach out and influence. Influencers can influence, but they should stop taking pictures of their breakfast and take pictures of something more important. So we have to recover our civitas, our sense of civic pride and duty. And this is what used to be taught to our kids. I collect old textbooks from before the war, and they're taught how to value not just our democracy and our participatory process, but also the places we live in. Starts with the plaza. So one of my other advocacies is to document the 1,000 or so more uh, plazas that we find in our towns and cities. Unfortunately, a lot of these plazas have been compromised. The mayors will always build the usual is the multi-purpose building, which cuts down all of the trees and replaces it with, you know, a basketball court. But they have tons of basketball courts everywhere, and they've lost the plaza as a center of their civic spirit. They a lot of the Jose Rizal statues that we found are pushed to the side or removed. We don't have any more heroes. Who are our heroes? In one town, we couldn't find Rizal, but we saw Hello Kitty. Yeah, it's true. And then in another town, it was Spider-Man instead of Rizal. So what does that say of our public life and what we value most? So we have to change. Of course, education is the other thing. I accept this talk, invitations for talk like this, but of course I'm getting old and my jokes are starting to turn stale. Right, Ramon? There's Monching.
The risk jokes were okay.
Yeah, it's evergreen. But we should carry pass the baton, and it's up to young folk like yourselves to play it forward. We all know what it takes, and it takes much less than the 150 million cap that DPWH has set as a peg for most developments. And I'm not talking even of the billions that go into flood control projects that don't work. Everywhere we go, because I do planning work for provinces and regions, we see the DPWH have a fetish for covering all riversides with concrete, even in the middle of rural areas where there's no need to do that. So the DENR has stated that all of this don't work because all it does is to channel all of the floodwaters much faster to our towns, our 1,450 towns and cities that are all at the bottom of the 16 major river basin systems in the Philippines. It's just common sense, although unfortunately it's not so common in the Philippines. But also it's a problem of politics. So the real way forward, if you're asking, and I'll anticipate the question, why won't Metro Manila or Metro Cebu work? It's because of politics. Metro Manila is 17 LGUs, 16 cities and one ridiculous town. Cebu is 5. So you have in Manila, it's not a problem of political will, it's a problem of 17 political wills, 18 including national government. So we have to change our political constructs to fit the realities of our environment. So we have to redraw political boundaries based on the physical aspects of our reality. But that takes a lot of change, but we have to start somewhere.
Thank you. So I guess to Paulo's point, politics are actually made up of people. So it's not an abstract word. So please get involved, starting with the barangays. So we have room for one question from the audience. Okay, so what I'll do is just to manage time is we'll have one question here and one downstairs. So please raise one question, not two in one go. just one. So we have more time for the second question.
No manifestations, please.
So who here? It's Zach. Okay, the microphone is here. But let's introduce yourself, Zach, so that the audience will know more about you.
Okay, so first, thank you, Paulo, for the history of Makati, as well as your role in its development. So I'm Zach. I'm a finance consultant here. And what I'm interested in is you said the recycling and refitting of the built environment, there's difficulties financing it. Is that because the creatives don't have the credit score? Is it because the banks prefer to finance condominiums?
That's it. Banks are very conservative. They will only fund the formulas that to them work. Nothing experimental, nothing progressive. So maybe we should start a new bank.
Progressive,
I know a few contractors who have billions that can start a new bank.
Go, Zach. Maybe have a conversation with Paulo.
What would we call it?
Motherfuckers. Joke lang.
Thank you for that question. Yes.
Okay, down here in yes, ma'am. Miss Susan.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Susan Amoroso from the Maritime Journalists Association of the Philippines. I come from Quezon City. I live along around the Quezon Memorial Circle, walking distance. I noticed that our government in Quezon City has started to destroy the sidewalks along the streets in the no, not the circle, but the scouts. uh those sidewalks are very wide, and they used to have this sort of parang yung nilalagay mo lang you just put it on the
Favors.
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Now they're
They're removing.
destroying it, and they putting cementing all
That-
the sidewalks.
I don't
Not
think.
anymore.
Okay.
Those, how do you call that? The pavers?
Yes, papers.
Yeah. Is that good for the city?
No, ideally you have what we call interlocking pavers on sand so that the stormwater can drain through, but it's not always applicable. I don't know what Mayor Joy is planning for that, or her Department of Parks is planning for all of that. I actually was invited by QC government 3 years ago to take a look at all the plans for improvement of all of this. And they wanted me to get involved, but I refused after I saw what they were planning to do. They were planning the Quezon Circle is 25 hectares, and they showed me their plans with just more buildings. I told them a park has no buildings, but yet you're planning more buildings. So I didn't agree to get involved. I don't know exactly what's happening in the Scout area. They're facing a problem of catering to all of the restaurants. The number one problem, they say, is parking. But of course, a lot of the changes in culture has pointed to the fact that the young generations now don't like to drive or don't want to own a car. So eventually, we don't really need all that parking. Everyone, even I, get around and grab. I'd love to get around without a car, but I have to find out from Mayor Joy what they're trying to do in the Scout area.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So we have one final question. Selena, who was that? Sige. So
That's okay. I'm here all night
Yeah. yes. So
until Ayala's next match.
Thank
so
you,
you, sir, and then final you is Erwin.
Thank you, sir. So, just ano lang po, quick question. Kasi my dad is a retired architect. Now, what can you say about
That's not
developers?
possible. Architects can't retire. They don't pay us enough. Diba?
Yeah. Actually, this is my experience with developers here in the Philippines. Like,
Better be careful. There's some here.
pero I'll name them. One of them is Pro Friends. Yun. What I've noticed kasi we're currently in Lancaster and not just Pro Friends but other developers in Cavite, most of them they're like the materials they're using like they said nabuhos daw, but unfortunately like after staying there for 6 months marami ng cracks. And how what is your take about those kinds of developers who are just after the profit margin instead of making sure that the quality should be there? Kasi like, I mean, there are, even in condominiums, like there's a lot of like, there's an oversupply, but still it's very expensive. Sometimes I'm considering myself moving to Vietnam eh. To be honest.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Or I
And-
want to go back to Singapore. I don't know why I left to come back here. But anyway,
Yeah.
I know your question. I'll use a Filipino adage.
Yeah.
Dalawang klaseng tao lang sa mundo. Right? The people who take advantage and the people who are taken advantage of. That's where we have to join forces as consumers to stand up for our rights.
Yeah.
So we have to find, so it goes back to electing the leaders who will push our agenda. Unfortunately, a lot of the mayors, a lot of the senators and congressmen are developers themselves. Right. So we should boycott their products, not buy their stuff, move to Vietnam, whatever.
Again, get involved, sir.
Get involved. Yes.
Yes, Irwin. Thank you.
Thanks, Pia. Paulo, thank you for your presentation. It's very informative, and I like the ambience.
There is.
There is, yeah. I'm not Gen Z, so
Oh.
yeah. Well, I'm an agriculturist by profession, so I'm usually the go-to guy for anything and everything agriculture.
I'm
And
for making marijuana legal.
yeah, but
I'm old. I need CBD.
later. Yeah, but I've been doing urban agriculture since 2016, and actually I was part of the team that developed the urban farm behind Saint Luke's.
Very good. Yeah.
So I'd like to know your thoughts about urban agriculture, since I think since pandemic there are a lot of efforts, especially for the plantitas. So what are your thoughts on urban agriculture, and how does it fall? How does it take part in terms of urban planning?
Yes. Thank you very much. I am, in fact, a landscape architect, which is a profession most people don't know about. And we deal with green all the time, aside from being a planner. Yes, it's a very important, one of the keystones to building for the future is making sure you're building green, and green not just in terms of material sources and carbon footprints, but also in terms of greening. So Singapore, I went there 40 years ago, and it had been successful in their greening program to make a better environment for their people as well as to attract investors. And you know what they use as material? It's the Philippine Nara and the Philippine Donias for the shrubs, right? So we have all of those planting materials. We can do the same thing with all of our towns and cities. And our DPWH, Public Works, used to have a landscaping department until the 1960s. And we used to plant trees. That's why you had a lot of large trees along all of our roads. But I guess in the 1960s, they figured there was no money in it. I mean, no whatever. So they removed that department. So nobody plants trees anymore, and instead they cut down those trees that they planted in all of their road widening projects. In terms of urban development, Singapore has led the way in their green and blue initiatives to give incentives to developers who will replace the area lost on their lot with green. So if you have a 2,000 square meter, 5,000 square meter lot, you're supposed to replace that with 5,000 square meters of greenery, and it can be vertical greenery. So they've developed the technology for vertical green walls and urban farms on top of social public housing units. They're encouraged and they're given incentives. So developers and even private landowners, the private homeowners are given incentives if you green up your properties. And it's all for the good. The new metric for towns and cities all over the world is not anymore how much money you make, but how much green you have in terms of forest canopy. So forest cover, tree cover is now one of the key metrics for towns and cities. New York and Paris are leading the way in plans for an urban forest. So they now have a urban forest master plan in New York City, planning to plant so many millions of trees. And it can be done. We have all of the experts. We don't need to go overseas for that. We know how to grow our own, so to speak. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paulo. So that's wrapping up the Q&A. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very
Everyone, let's
much.
all give Paulo a warm round of applause.
I am on social media, Facebook, Instagram as Paulo Alcazaren or Motherfuckers.
Yes. And also, I wanted to show this. So if
Oh.
also you wanted to know more about
Oh, yes.
Paulo's work and advocacy, please get a copy of BluPrint. He's the editor-in-chief.
Are we giving away?
Yes, of
We're
course.
giving away.
Giving away. There's a
I
stack
didn't think
there.
there would be so many, so I only brought about 50.
So yung mga mag-queue kay Paulo later, we'll get
Oh,
a copy. But make sure that it's short and sweet conversations, so that Paulo can also rest his voice.
Yes.
But in any case, salamat Paulo. You know how to find him. I am a big follower of your Facebook posts. I learn a lot from all those work that you do with the government, and thank you so much for you working with them tirelessly. It's a long conversation, so I appreciate the patience with them.
And thank you all very much for coming. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
So to our audience, before we wrap up, so one announcement. Wait, actually two announcements. Could we, Monica, dun sa survey? Yes. Okay. So the one exciting part of the program, we invite you to share with us your feedback about tonight's event. Because if you do, we do announce winners.